Right off the top of the video, look at the before, look at the after. Wow, I'm so excited about this dress. Let me show you how I did it. Hello everybody, welcome to Catherine Sews. Thank you so much for joining me today. Yes, I know my buttons are popping, but I'm still super excited about this dress that I thrifted. You know what? I saw it months ago in my local thrift store. It was new with the tags on, but it was $50 in a thrift store. There was no way I was going to spend $50 on it, especially since it doesn't fit. But I waited and waited. I knew it would go on sale and that it would eventually go to at least half price, because who would buy this dress? It's very dull and frumpy looking, and $50 is ridiculous when you're thrifting. But I waited and waited, and finally it went on sale half price. So $25 is still a lot of money to spend on a dress that doesn't fit you. But I think this dress has so much potential. I love the long full skirt. One thing it also has is pockets. Don't you just love that? I love that it has pockets. I like all the buttons down the front. I love the pretty print. It's a little on the drab side for me when I'm all covered in it, but I think if I restyle it and get rid of some of the covering, then I think it'll be really, really pretty. So the first thing I have to deal with is the midsection. It's too snug. In fact, right up to the bust line, obviously it's just a little too snug and it doesn't even button properly. So that's got to go immediately. Second, I just want to make it a little less covered up. Because it's coming up to summer, I'd like to have a little bit of skin showing, not a lot, a little bit less sleeve, a little bit less collar, and I think this is gonna be really a pretty one. It's like not enough fabric here, too much fabric here. So let's redistribute some of that fabric. I'm gonna take that sleeve and put an inset into the side seam. I'm gonna do a little cap sleeve, and also I'll change the neckline, and then that might be just about it, and we'll see if I end up with a pretty dress. Okay, time to start chopping this up. When I had it on, I drew a little faint green line here where I'm going to be cutting for the neckline. The collar isn't very attractive anyway, like it's rumply and it's a bit of a mess. So I am not scared to cut that off because I'm really not losing anything. So I'm trying to have the two button plackets laying right on top of each other, and I want it to sort of smooth right around to the center back here, so that that whole neckline is laid out before me. Just so it doesn't shift around on me, I'm going to put a couple clips. Okay, good. So when there are buttons involved, I have to really be cautious about where I cut, because I still want to be able to button that buttonhole. So I want to have seam allowance above it, so I can probably cut that close to my buttonhole. My buttonhole is right where the clip is. So I need to have that little bit of seam allowance there and a right angle. And I'm just roughing this in right now, and then I'm going to fix that line with my curved ruler. I'm going to come right around the back neck like that. So I want to have it more or less straight right through the button placket, but then a nice curve in the rest of the neckline. Ending with definitely a right angle at the back neck. If I don't have a right angle there, it's going to be a V or a point. Then I am fine to cut. Good. All right, now cutting off the sleeves. And again, I want to spend a minute laying it all out symmetrically, both sleeves together, and clip everything nice and smooth and flat. And then again, there's a faint green line that I drew while I had it on, and I was drawing where I thought I should cut. So already including a little bit of seam allowance, pretty close to my seam here, and then right angle at the edge. So it's just a little cap sleeve that will be remaining. And that's pretty easy. Phew. Can you just hear this dress breathe a sigh of relief now that its load has been lightened? Already looking good. All right. So now these sleeves are all I have to be able to put that little extra panel in the side seam. So I hope it's long enough. There's a pin I put in while I had it on. That's where it kind of starts fitting okay. So from here to here is where I want to make it bigger. I think probably including through the sleeve. That is the length I have, and the sleeve is gonna just have to do. So okay, I'm gonna cut off the cuff. I think I need both sleeves, like one sleeve on each side.
And then I will cut right up the seam of the sleeve. Okay, good. So I'll put those two sleeve pieces right side together, and then I can really see what I'm dealing with, how much fabric I have. And I think I will be doing myself a favor if I just quickly take those to the iron and iron them a little more flat. So now my fabric here is nice and smooth. I'll have to open up this side seam down to the pin. So there is that pocket here, but that's not going to bother me. This seam is kind of just normal. So that amount, oh my gosh, am I the luckiest girl ever? Like, look, it's exactly what I need. It's amazing. And you know what? The way this curve is sitting is probably, like, that is probably about right for what I need, right? So I'm going to trace that curve. Oh, and then there is a waist seam. So let's say if this piece wasn't long enough, I would just mimic that seam straight across. As it is though, I don't think I need to do that. So right there to right here. And now I'm going to flip that over. Well, let's just still put end to end here. Okay. So instead of coming to a point up here, I think I will just give myself a little extra at the top here to go into the sleeve, and also just so I'm not tapering it off right at the bust line where I definitely needed some, but it can come to a point down here at the bottom. Well, how exciting. That looks great. So I will cut a little bit outside that. And yes, I am being a little loosey-goosey. Good. Okay, so the skinnier end is for the hip, the wider end is for the bottom of the sleeve. So now it's nobody's favorite part. I need to open up that side seam. My pin is basically, well, let's call it 2 inches below the pocket opening. It crosses this waist seam, which was sewn second. So let me first just open up a little bit of that waist seam, just an inch or so. And of course, this also requires some patience. If you dig in too much or if you're not careful, you can easily damage the fabric. So just take your time. So I just took the sewing line out, and now I can see that the serging is just a 3-thread serge, meaning that there's just one needle. So one needle thread is no problem. I'm going to just cut that needle thread in a couple of places and then pull it, and then everything just comes apart. How nice is that? Alrighty, so that separates out that seam, and then just opening it up to the bottom. Yeah, I can feel that's the bottom of the pocket opening. So I'll just take it down to the actual bottom of the pocket, taking out the stitch line first, and I'll also cut the needle thread of the serging, and I'll go to the opposite end of what I need to take out, pull out the sewing thread. Okay, and then look at that. Very nice. That just pulled right out. And then the needle thread of the serging also just pulls right out. Wow, how fantastic is that? And then everything else just falls off. Yay! I've got 4 sections to do that too, right? Both sides, above and below that waist seam. Anyway, you get the idea. I'm opening up the side seam. I'll see you back here in a minute with it all opened up. Alrighty, so I opened up that whole big side seam, like right down to the hip. So now I've got those 3 little horizontal seams to just put back together. So just blending back with the original sewing line there. And I have to do that in 6 places. And then 1 little inch of serging in 6 places. Oh no, 8 places. 8 places, that's okay. I think it'll be worth it. Yeah, I think that was 8. So 8 little inches of serging. I could definitely just zigzag that seam. Okay, so the wide end is for the sleeve end and the point is for the hip. I'm just going to baste this in because, I mean, if it works out perfectly the first try, that will be a miracle. I think there's definitely going to have to be some tweaking. And so I will just baste this in place and then try it on. So here's the pocket opening. And this is the only tricky bit. I need to just be able to sew right beside that pocket opening without catching it and closing it. So I'm just going to take a pin and push that opening in a little bit so that I just have a normal seam to sew. And I don't have to worry about sewing around the point of this. I just have to sew off one side and then sew the other side, like really just 2 normal seams. Okay, here we go. So I think it's going to be easier if I have the original dress facing up and my little long skinny triangle facing down. That way I can see the original sewing line and try to follow it. So here's my pocket opening. I can feel right where that is. I'm going to aim right for that corner. And then I can feel there's the bottom corner of the pocket opening. And you're right, I forgot to switch my stitch length to a long stitch length. Now I'm on a long stitch length, so hopefully that top part is fine. Okay. So no back tags, because that's supposed to be temporary. Okay, beautiful. And then on this side, I'll start at the bottom, because I think it is good to have the original sewing line showing up here so I can follow it. Okay, so that just gets that piece in place, and now I can sew that extra panel to the backs. So this is my new piece, and I'm bringing the edges together now. And then sew that just like it's a normal seam. So the 2 side seams are no longer going to be touching, but I think it makes sense to try to keep them level across this middle piece. So it's got a little bit of leeway, like if it's not exact, nobody's really going to be able to tell, but I don't want it to look angled. I don't want it to look funny, like it's at a different angle there. And then the same here at the end of the sleeve edge. I want to definitely match that end up so that, yeah, look at that. That's going to sit just nice. Okay, so there you can see how I sewed over my first seam, and on the outside it's just going to look like a perfect little point, but I didn't have to sew around that point. Well, pretty perfect little point. If it's all good, I'll sew in a little closer so that I don't see the end of my piece, but I think it's going to be ducky.
Oh my goodness, I cannot believe the difference it made to cut off the sleeves and cut off the collar. Like, even if that's all I did to this dress, the world is a better place now. It's just so much prettier and so much less matronly. So it's still obviously gaping at the bust point there, but it's not tight anymore. I think it's just, that's what it's just going to do. And so I'll be putting a little clear snap there. So that problem solved. Like, the fit is so much better, but it's now just a little loose at the waist and a little loose under the arm, but the bust and the hip, everything is good. I am excited about this dress.
So right here at the waist, I want to just nip it in a little bit there. So I always put things on inside out when I'm fitting.
It's just so much easier to work with those seams when they're on the outside.
Maybe a little bit on the back. And then, yeah, under the arm, it's just a little flappy in here. And right at this seam, do you see how it bags there? I'm going to take a little bit off that seam as well. It's a little horizontal bit there. Okay, getting there. So now with it off, now it's time to try to make sense of my pins. So with a different color than what I originally drew on here, I'll just mark the pins. And then wherever I don't have it pinned is where it was fine as is. So I'm going to blend back out here at the bust line and then back in to the sleeve. I have to just open up that little bit at the V, just because you remember one seam overlaps the other. And in at the waist, out at the bust, in at the underarm. Just like that. That'll be fine. And then it'll mean one more try on before I serge. And pins are definitely better here than clips because they kind of mimic your sewing line, and you you just can't be accurate with clips on something like this. So blend into my first sewing line and then follow my new blue lines. Okay, and then that one horizontal seam across the back, let's just look into that. So again, I'm going to use my basting stitch to just try that out. And when I say a basting stitch, all I did was increase my stitch length to 5, same regular stitch. But now I'm going to blend into the original stitch line at the waist and then just come up a bit when I'm at the center of that back panel. Good. And then blend back down to nothing at the opposite side waist. And we'll just see if that does anything good. Okay, try on again. One slight tweak on one side and it is really lovely. I think you're gonna be surprised at how pretty this is at the end. Okay, so that is all good. And you know what I think I'm going to do? Instead of going over all my seams with a regular stitch, I think I'm just gonna serge. So let's go to the serger. So I want to start with this one, the one that's laying under, and then I'll get in there for the second one. It'll be fine, you'll see. So those 2 bumps on the presser foot line up with my needles. So I want to line the left one up with my final sewing line, and I'll be trimming away the excess here. My serger doesn't mind cutting off a little. Some sergers don't like to really cut off much at all. They get kind of choked, but I think we'll be fine here. I just want to make sure this chunk comes down and doesn't get caught into the serging behind. Good, so that is ducky. That is just fine. Okay. Okay, so here, where the V comes together, that little gap that I was seeing before where I wasn't 100% thrilled, I just want to make sure this is opened right out. And if these edges are together, then when I serge right down here, that's where I'm going to get that perfect V. I don't want an extra fold like that. I want it like that. You see the difference? And then if this edge is in line with the other edge and this is out, then it'll be good. Good. So on the inside, it just looks like that, right? And then the outside, this is where I should theoretically have a perfect little V. Well, there it is. That's beautiful. Alrighty, other side. So when I'm here, I want the little extension sticking out. And then we go on like with our normal seam. I think it's time for a new blade on my serger. But it still did a pretty good job. So those sides are all done. They just need a little bit of a press. But there's that long skinny triangle coming down. Here's the pocket opening. It's still all good. And now you might be wondering, how am I going to finish off the neckline and the sleeves? Well, I was wondering that too. So then I went to my stash. And in my stash, I found this old trim, which is yellow. There's not really yellow in here, but there's blue and green and ivory, which I think yellow is just very complementary with. I think that's really nice. So I'm going to be putting that little trim just on the sleeves and neckline. I definitely don't want to go too lacy and frilly. I did play around with like kind of crocheted lace like that and an eyelet, and it just made me feel like I was trying to look like I was 12 years old. But this one is more subtle, and I think I can get away with it. I hope you agree. Okay, so now to attach this, if I just serge it right on and then turn it and do an edge stitch, I think that will be good. I just have to worry about joining the ends. So maybe I'll start an inch away and end an inch away and then join my ends. I think that's going to be really nice. Let's go to the serger then. So my little trim has a right and a wrong side. This is the right side. It's got some staining because it is really old, but I don't think that's going to end up showing. So I want to put it right side together with the edge of my sleeve, and I'll start over here, leaving that little inch free. And I'm going to keep a little bit of tension on the trim because the sleeve was a little flappy. I definitely don't want to stretch out the sleeve. So I'll put tension on the trim. I'm holding the trim straight and then just bringing the edge of the sleeve around to meet it. You will have an easier time with this because you won't have a camera right in front of your face. So that is attached, but it's attached too low, right? I don't want all that sticking out. So I'm gonna go over to the regular sewing machine and go in closer. And which I should go over there anyway to join my ends, so I think that's going to work out. I think I might just complete this one sleeve, make sure I'm happy before I try anything else. You know what? I just tried it on again and it's so pretty. It's really, really pretty. So I'm just going for it. It's gonna be fine, don't worry. Okay, at the neckline, I'm just gonna leave a little bit hanging over. A little tension on the trim and move the neckline in to meet it. I definitely don't want to stretch out the neckline. Okay, to the regular machine. So at the sleeves, like at the underarm, I just want to join the seam where it needs to be. So if I've got the sleeve kind of folded like that, I'm going to be putting a pin right there. I could worry about the little scallop edge meeting, but it's going to be under my arm. So I think I'll make my life easier and not worry about that scallop matching up. And the same attitude is going toward the thread too. I could switch to a white thread, but I don't think anyone's going to be investigating my underarms. So now, to finish off these edges, I think what I'll do is cut one edge short and then wrap the other edge around. That is fine. And I don't even think I'm going to do anything else there. All I'm going to do now is sew the whole way around. I'm just going to sew with that fold in place. Yeah, that little fold in there is just fine, no big deal. I'm gonna edge stitch now. I could use the free arm of my machine right now, that would be smart, but I think I'm fine. Okay, so that's the bottom edge of my sleeve. That is so pretty. Isn't that cute? And hopefully it's not, too juvenile. Hopefully I can wear that. So yeah, what I just started worrying about is the neckline, especially if that gets to be a bigger seam. I think I'm gonna have to clip there. So that means I should have done my serging after. You were maybe thinking that all along. All right, so I'm gonna sew this closer and then clip my curve and then reserge. So the bottom of both sleeves is perfect. It's so cute. So it is really only the neckline that I'm worried about. Okay, so I'm happy with the sleeves. Can I get the neckline to sit nicely without, no, no, right away you can see that's not gonna work. Okay, no problem. So on a curve like that, you have to clip. I got a little overly excited. There we go. That's better, right? And it's only in the really curvy part that I have to clip. The straighter parts over here are laying fine. But yeah, now my serging is all cut up, so I have to reserge that section. No problem. Now this little bit, what do I want to do here? I could just do a little fold, but I'm worried that that'll look a little bit bulky at the top there. So I might just fold it on an angle like that. That'll be good. So I'll just check the rest of the neckline, and wherever it does this, like wherever it just will not behave and it won't turn nicely, that's where I need to clip. And look what a difference it makes. So the other thing that I just need to be aware of with this trim is that I have already washed this dress in cold water and I hung it to dry. So that's how I need to continue to treat it, which I would anyway, but this trim could shrink. That's my point. And I didn't pre-wash the trim, right? So I will just need to do that same, very gentle laundering. And I think a dress like this, that's what you would do anyway, right? You wouldn't just chuck this into your regular wash cycle. I do like that little mitered fold there. That's cute. Alrighty, serging again. And I'm just going to serge right over my original serging. I'm definitely not going to pull all that out. I just need to let those little snips spread out. Right, if I just serge it back in like that again, it's not gonna let it do its thing. Like, it has to be able to spread out like that. Should be good. Okay, super sweet. There's my little fold. Let's get rid of the yucky serger tail. I don't really worry too much about serger tails when they're on the inside like that. Just trim them off. And then here we go. That little beveled corner is nice, or mitered corner, I guess. And now my little edge stitch. So you can see why I needed to leave like a good couple centimeters or 3/4 of an inch above my button, right? You just can't cut too close to your button because you end up with no area to be able to turn it down here. So I'll make sure this can go into a nice shape here. Oh my goodness, how cute. I love it. Alrighty, I just need to hand sew those snaps on. I'm going to do one in between the buttons here at the bust line, and then one just below the waist. That was kind of gapping a bit too, or gaping a bit too. So I just use these little clear snaps, and then I use a quadruple thread just like I do for buttons. And then once one side is on, then I just peek inside and see where the center of the snap hits on the other side. And on the outside layer, I just need to make sure my stitches don't show on the outside. So I'm just sewing through the one layer. And then I think I am done my favorite dress.
Okay, you know what? When upcycling is good, it's really good, right? Like, let's look at the before and after. This dress was really kind of awful. Like, I felt like I was like 100 years old in it, and it was just so covered up. And I feel a bajillion times prettier in this dress now than how it was before. And it was pretty fast, right? That just really didn't present me with too many problems along the way. Not really a roller coaster ride, just kind of smooth sailing. The trim with that bit of yellow, right? Like, I knew in my head, like, yellow, there's no yellow in the dress, but it just looked good, so why not? And I think it just brightens it a little bit, because this fabric can be towards the drab side, but that yellow just gives it that little spark of sunshine. I love it. And I don't think anybody is going to think twice about those panels going down the side. It just looks like part of the dress. No big problem. The pockets still work. It's all good. Oh, I did put those little plastic snaps in, one right here, one down here. They're just really easy, and it makes it so that I don't have to put a safety pin or just worry about it popping open. Like, it's just in there and doing its job. No problem. So this dress was sitting on the rack, looking ugly, going nowhere, and now I feel like I've breathed new life into it, and it's going to be worn and loved, and I'm so happy with it. Thank you so much for being with me right till the end. I always love that so much. And until next time on Catherine Sews, you take care.